Today's video is about mindset, how mindset influences your health and well-being, and a fixed versus a growth mindset. A lot of today's discussion is based on my understanding of a presentation I saw at the Sun Valley Wellness Virtual by Dr. Sasha Heinz. In it, Dr. Sasha Heinz talks about mindset, which she describes as your belief system that affects your outlook, your behavior, even your attitude, and how that mindset can affect your health. And one of the examples she gives is exercise. So she presents a study that shows that it's possible that just changing your mindset about your exercise can have health benefits without even changing your exercise. A quick aside, the study she cited had housekeepers, and some of the housekeepers were not told anything, where that was the control group, and some housekeepers were told just a mindset change. They were told, hey, you know what? The Surgeon General has determined that the amount of exercise you're getting just in your job is already really healthy. And in that group with the mindset change, without any exercise change, they noticed health improvements. So changing your mindset about your exercise might be able to improve your health in ways without even changing your exercise. Another study that she cited was about stress. And most people think that some stress is okay, but too much stress is not so good or deleterious. In this study, they took a group of very stressed out people. It was in the 2008 financial meltdown, and it was people working in the financial world. So people whose jobs were at stake, or there was a lot of uncertainty, certainly a lot of stress. And they took a control group and didn't tell them anything. And then they took a test group and told them, hey, stress is your friend. Stress is hyper-focusing, makes you more aware, it makes you feel alive, and stress is really going to carry the day. And having that stress is really helpful for change in your life. And this test group also had measurable improvements in their health. Their blood pressure dropped, whereas with the control group there was not the same noticed changes. So again, just changing your mindset about stress being a good thing rather than a bad thing seemed to have positive benefit in this one particular study. So that got me to thinking, what are my own mindsets that I'm really appreciative of? In my own life, I went to college and had a mindset change about the heat. So I'm in a dorm room with a bunch of dormies, and everyone's having the usual discussion about heat. Oh, I really hate the heat. I just melt in it. Or, oh, with the humidity especially, it's especially bad. And I had just sort of listened to enough that it had become my own mindset. Yeah, I don't like the heat. I don't like to have humidity around when I'm hot. There was this woman in the room who said, you know, back home in the summertime, I love the heat. I love sitting on my front porch in my rocking chair and just sweating. And perhaps it's because I had a crush on this woman, but something about that idea was so attractive to me that I changed my mindset in that moment. And I know I changed it because ever since then I've loved the heat. Even if it's 115 degrees outside, I really love to be outside in the heat. And it was just a mindset change. And one mindset that I've refused to change about myself is I love shivering. This sounds so odd to other people, but it makes perfect sense to me. When I was a child, I'd be outside, and I grew up in the mountains of Idaho, so it gets quite cold in the winter. But my parents were not from a winter climate. My dad was from Southern California, so he bought us a bunch of cotton clothes, which are not very friendly to cold winters. And so I was ill-equipped for the winters when I was a child. And if I was outside with my friends, we would get cold, and my body would start shivering. And what I loved about it is shivering meant I could warm back up, and so it meant we could continue the adventures longer. They all had the proper gear, so they could keep going, but the only way I could keep going is if I started shivering. So I'd start shivering, and I'd notice immediately my body was generating its own heat, and I could stay on my adventure longer. And so to this day, when I shiver, I see it as this really wonderful thing, and I have a good relationship to it. So I have a mindset that shivering is okay. Another person in this world who has a very positive mindset about being a human in the cold is a guy by the name of Will Hoff. If you've never heard his name, he's a guy who can be in just boxers and shoes in sub-zero temperatures for hours on end, and he actually prefers this. And a lot of people thought, oh, he's just a freak of nature. But no, it's actually a mindset that he has, because he's been able to teach this mindset to others. So sure, he teaches some actual things you do, like you change your breathing, but it's mostly a mindset change. And he's trained a lot of people now who can go just in boxers and boots. They can go on multi-hour hikes in sub-freezing temperatures, even if it's snowing, and be just fine. And they're not even shivering. Their mindset is our human body is capable of regulating our heat even in sub-freezing temperatures. And it makes sense because we haven't evolved a lot in the last 100,000 years, but humans were living in these sub-zero or sub-freezing temperatures and figuring it out. So that's another person in this world who has a mindset difference about humans' relationship to sub-freezing temperatures. The other thing that Dr. Sasha Heinz discussed was having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is about proving yourself for a label that you already have. And it's about this belief that you are who you are and you just need to prove yourself. And so people who have fixed mindsets, and I believe we all have fixed mindsets about some things and growth mindsets about others. So something you might have a fixed mindset about, you might feel judged on. And if you have a growth mindset about something, you typically don't feel judged, and it's not about proving yourself, it's about improving. So you can handle criticism really well in a growth mindset, because criticism is often helpful in your discovery process of getting better at something. Whereas if you are in the fixed mindset, criticism is generally like, oh, okay, keep that away from me because I'm trying to prove myself. I don't need your criticism. And she definitely encourages you to switch wherever possible from a fixed mindset into a growth mindset and to get away from a fixed if you're trying to change yourself for the better. She posits you can only change yourself while in a growth mindset. One example in my own life of having a fixed versus a growth mindset that I'm very appreciative of is about working hard. And in high school and college, sometimes people would say, oh, Sam, you're the smart one. And as tempting as that might seem, I always rejected that. And I'm very glad, after watching Dr. Heinz's presentation, I'm glad I did reject it, because that allowed me to stay in the growth mindset. Because I would instead say, no, I'm not smart. I'm the poster child for someone who works hard. So instead of being the smart one and taking on that mantle, really, oh, Sam's the smart one, then I'm suddenly having to prove that I'm the smart one. Suddenly there's people being like, oh, I heard you're the smart one, so I have to prove it. And instead of having that mantle of being the smart one, which I shed constantly, I was putting myself in a growth mindset. So I'm allowing myself the ability to make mistakes, the ability to grow, the ability to be criticized and learn from those criticisms. And I'm very appreciative that somehow, somewhere I kind of knew, hey, don't act like you're the smart one, Sam, because you're not. You're someone who works hard. And to me, that in the context of Dr. Heinz's presentation, that meant I was putting myself in that growth mindset. So of course, this presentation got me to thinking, where are other areas where I am in a fixed mindset and maybe I can shift to a more of a growth mindset? And one of the places is probably finances. I certainly have this fixed idea that I have more than enough money. I have more than I need. And that's really a fixed mindset, and shifting maybe to something where it's okay to use money to create change in the world around you, to create change in your life. And it's not about like I have more than I need. Maybe it could be more about putting money to work to create change in this world. Another area where I probably have something to think through about fixed versus growth mindset is home. I recognize that right now I'm across the street from my home, and I put a lot of work into my home every day, and I think it's quite beautiful and I love working on it. And I have renters in it. So I'm not actually living there. I'm here across the street in this beautiful house sitting. And I think there's something odd going on that I keep creating these wonderful homes for other people. And then me, myself, I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I have so little needs in this world that I can just, go and be anywhere. And so to me, there's some discovery process that I want to go through. In the comments, if you want to add places where you are in a fixed mindset and wanting to switch to a growth mindset, would love those comments. Or perhaps where you've always been in a growth mindset and you appreciate that. Or any comments at all about the video or mindset in general would be really well received. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, and always subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you.